again, this is Kyle. Let's write some code. I have my usual standard dev setup here, and I'll have a little card up in the little corner to get this same dev setup going for you. But I can just type npm start here in my console and get this app going. So today we are going to be talking about AJAX requests, or sending HTTP requests through the browser. So as you can see here, I have this bears.json file that contains a list of bears. And at some point in my application, I don't want to reload the page or do anything. I just want to go grab this list of bears from my server and present it in the browser in some way. And so what I need to do is I need to send an AJAX request, or asynchronous JavaScript and XML request. It doesn't have to use XML, but that's just the name of it. We're just going to be using JSON here and not XML, because I'm not a big fan of XML, but you're welcome to use XML if you want to. Anyways, moving on. I have this index.js file here. This is our main file coming in. And to create a request in the browser, we're going to create a variable here. And we're going to call new on an API that's available globally in the browser, called XML HTTP request. And now this will be available on the window object if your browser is newer than, say, it's a new browser such as like IE 7 Plus. So it's been around for a while, but if you have older browser support, you're probably going to need to use a shim to support this through other methods. But for our purposes here, we're perfectly fine doing just XML HTTP request. So this will create our request in which we can now configure it to do things. So the first thing we want to do is type request open, and this is going to take what type of request. And we're going to do a GET request. You can do post, put, delete, all kinds of those requests, but we're just going to get some JSON somewhere else. And so from our server, we can put in the full server address here. In fact, that's probably preferred for this tutorial. So our file is bears.json here. But just know we can also just do simply a slash here, and it's going to grab it from the root of our server. Or we can put in the full URL there. So now that our request is open and it's telling us what we're going to be getting, we need to actually submit and send off the request. And so we can do that with request.send. And this will actually, initialize the request and get it going. And then this one, I'll actually send it off and say, okay, start going, go out there and grab that data. And so if we go here to our browser and refresh the page, we can go here to the network tab. And as you can see, we have sent the request off for this bears.json, and it actually has got it. And we got our response with the JSON. So our network request worked. But now, we want to know when we want to know the response. We want to know when everything is all done, give us the JSON, because we want to actually use it now. And so to do that, we are going to add a callback hook to our request called onReadyStateChange, all lowercase. And this is going to be just a callback function hook. And so basically, the request object has a property on it called ready state. And the ready state will change depending on where it is in the request. So when the ready state changes, we can say, okay, if the ready state equals, let's say 1, this is let us know that send has been called. It's going to start. And then if the ready state is 3, then we know that we're loading. It's currently processing and downloading the file that we requested from the server in the process. If the ready state is 4, that lets us know that we're all done. And that's the one we're interested in here, because we want to know that our request is finished and we can actually view the response. So now that the request is finished and we know that it's done, we can log out the response. So let's say request.response, and we can see the value of the response that we've got. And so now when we refresh the page and check our console, you'll see in plain text that we get the contents of our requested file. And so from this point on, since we're using it's JSON, we can just parse it here by saying var bears equals json.parse, and we can parse our response. and log out our bears here. And now when we refresh, we can actually access it through JavaScript. So maybe we want the second bear in the list here, and refresh, and we get the second bear in the list. So that's great if everything goes as planned, but what if I mistyped the name? What if I accidentally typed boars.json and refresh the page? You could see that we get this nasty error because it's trying to parse a broken response because the boars.json does not exist on my server. And so we can detect this by checking the status on the request. So we can say if request status equals 200, the 200 HTTP status code means that everything is okay. No problems were reported by the server. Otherwise, if there was an error, we can just throw a new error here just for display purposes. And the contents of the error will be in the request.response. So we can detect, okay, if the status code right here, as you see, we have a 404, so that means it's not found. So we can say if the status code equals 404, say, you typed the wrong name, dummy, or maybe it's a 422 and it's you didn't unprocessable entity. You can do whatever you want with the status code and customize your error codes as needed here. And so as you can see here, now that when we request boars, we get this error that we've thrown ourselves. Error file not found was the contents of the response that we have here. Now, if you have a small app that doesn't really do much, using XML HTTP request directly is perfectly okay. But more often, you're likely going to use an abstraction. For instance, if you are using jQuery, then you'll likely be using AJAX, the method call there, or the get or the post. Those are definitely the preferred ways because they're going to give you a lot of nice abstraction on top of it. But if you don't, if you're not using jQuery, there's a really nice library that I like called nets. And so I'm going to go here to my terminal, and I'm going to type npm install nets, and then save it to my dev or my dependencies here. And then I'm going to start my server back up again. And so to use nets, we can simply just say nets equals require nets and use that. And to accomplish the same HTTP request, we can call the nets method here, and we can supply it a config object. And the first one we're going to supply is the URL to our bears, not boars, JSON file here. And by default, it's going to default to a GET request, so we don't need to specify that, but you could specify method here if you wanted to. And then another nice thing is we can indicate that this is a JSON file, so go ahead and parse that for us. And so when that request finishes, it's going to give us this callback here, which is going to have an error if one happened, the response, and then our list of bears here that's automatically been parsed since we have JSON true here. And so we can do something simple like, I don't know, bears for each. We can loop through our bears, and I don't know, document write them. I don't think you should do this in actual practice, but for our purposes here, this should be just fine. So see, it's a lot simpler, and we get a lot more of the error handling and the other niceties from it by using nets instead. And so when I go here to my browser and refresh the page, bear is not defined. Oh, yeah, I should probably fix that typo. Okay, save that. There we go. Refresh. There we go. Now I have my list of bears from my server placed into my page. So another great part about nets is that it will also run on the server with Node.js. So since the server doesn't have document here, I'm going to do console log instead and console log out our bears. And so you can see here when it's ran in the browser, it works just as expected. But then if I go here to my terminal and I also run it through Node.js on the server side, you could see that it still sends off the request to our server and console logs out the thing. So that's what's pretty cool about nets, is that it will run on both the client side and the server side. So I hope this video has helped you learn about creating AJAX requests. And if it has, then please share the video and help others learn. And if you want to see more videos, please subscribe. Thanks again for watching.